Are you currently soul searching? You're lost, you're overworked, you're having an identity crisis and don't know who you are anymore? Well, you're in the right place because in this episode, Erica Castner is going to share how she overcame alcoholism and identity crisis as a new stepmom to really tap into what mattered most and figure out what was really going to work and what was not. We're always honored to have every single guest share their story and how they got through their life storm. If you know somebody that needs to hear this episode, we'd be super grateful if you could send this to somebody that needs to hear this message today. Gratitude.
Welcome to Thriving Beyond, the podcast with stories of thriving through when the obstacles are far from few. Here's your host, whose own story has been featured in Chicken Soup for the Soul, Vidal Cisneros Jr.
All right, welcome everyone back to Thriving Beyond. I'm excited because we have Erica Castner with us, and she has been featured in the Huffington Post and theexaminer.com. Erica has also identified the key factor to turn ideas and goals into results and accomplishments. Erica helps her clients bridge the gap between where they are now and the next level they want to achieve. Erica is also the founder of Queen of Results Business Coaching. She is also the host of Power Factor Biz Chat, where she interviews influential business experts. Erica, it is such a pleasure having you. How are you today?
Oh, I'm so honored to be here, Vidal. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
The pleasure's all ours. We're excited to have the Queen of Results Business Coaching with us. And if you want to power up your business, definitely go and check out your iTunes podcast, right? It's on iTunes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We are having a lot of fun on that show. We've had some pretty exciting leaders on the show talking about their obviously their journey to entrepreneurship or to how they got to where they're at today. So we do talk a little bit about tactical stuff, but we're also talking about that mental and emotional journey that they've been on too to really fire up and power up their business.
Right on. And just so you know, they can go very quickly, learn more about you. Maybe they don't have enough time right now to listen to the rest of the episode. Make sure you subscribe, download this episode. But Erica, where can they find you online real quick?
Real quick, if they go to thequeenofresults.com, that's the perfect place. The podcast link is there. Everything that they need to know in a hot minute about me is right there on that location at thequeenofresults.com.
Right on. Or just subscribe, download this episode, and you'll have it there for a long time. Now, Erica, if you could sum up for our audience of Thrivers what you do in one sentence or less, what would that sentence be?
Well, thank you for that question. I guess in one sentence or less, I'm really interested in helping professionals build more confidence and stop the procrastination and what it takes to build their business to that next level. And doing that through coaching and some other professional development programs as well.
Right on. So we kind of spoke a little bit about the focus and lack of focus sometimes thereof when you're trying to launch a results business coaching little endeavor. So focus kept coming up in our little pre-roll chat leading up to this episode. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask you, what is a morning ritual or a daily ritual for that matter that you use to help you focus on a daily basis or weekly basis?
Writing things down, and not just in the tactical list, making the to-do list kind of stuff. I'm talking about getting up every morning before you shower, before you check your emails, before you really rock your day. Grab that cup of coffee. I totally get that. But I actually write my intention for that day. I don't get too hairy McCleary with this. I just get very specific about what's my intention in my business, or if it's a weekend, what am I intending to do for that day? And then I'm expressing some form of gratitude around a challenge I might be going through at the moment. I think it's important to identify that aspect because it's easy to be grateful and express gratitude for the things that are awesome in our world, but it causes us to pause a little bit if we're expressing gratitude for those hiccups or those challenges that we're having in the morning. I think it makes us more clear when we're setting our intention going into that day. And then last but not least, I'm writing down 2 action steps that are going to move me closer to that intention for my day. So it's all focused around that power of writing, clearing my mind, really getting super focused on how I can rock my day moving forward. And then the next day I get up and do it all over again.
Right, and I love that. Don't be Harry McClary. Write it down. Stay focused. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So, Erica, this is the part where we kind of deep dive and we go from the global view of some of the toughest challenges that you faced, that life storm that you were just profusely frustrated with. And you were fed up with, and you finally said, enough is enough. Could you kind of take us from the global view and then take us to the curbside street view of what that looked like?
Well, I guess the global view is about 3.5 years ago, I didn't value my own worth. And a lot of, that's like the 30,000 feet view of what was going down. But I didn't realize it when I was going through my own storm. But how that looks from the curbside view, as you like to put it, I was newly married and I was a new mom. I had 2 gift daughters from a previous, my husband has 2 daughters from a previous marriage. And all of a sudden I was welcoming 2 teenage daughters into my world. And I, quite honestly, on paper, looked like a rock star, but behind the scenes, I was having a bit of an identity crisis with that. I was, here I am in my mid-30s. I've never been a mom, and all of a sudden now I'm sharing custody with this other household. And as you can imagine, that has a lot of challenges, within itself. I'm great. I'm very blessed that we have a very fortunate circumstance, and everything's amicable. But I just didn't know where I fit into the picture. And I was also working a lot, because when things are rocky at home, do you really want to be at home? No, you're going to go probably pour yourself into other things that are going to take you away from that crazy energy. And it wasn't that it was terrible. It was just that internally, I just didn't feel like I fit in. And that was showing up in everything that I was doing. I mean, I was working more hours than I probably should have. I was overindulgent in a lot of things. I mean, I was actually networking, quote unquote, networking late at night, which meant I was drinking a couple cocktails or a few more, not feeling the greatest, not really focusing on my fitness. So it was just really I was in this identity crisis. And at the end of the day, I had really needed to, I realized that the only way I was going to be able to get out of my funk, the only way I was going to be able to stop sabotaging my own success was through the efforts of somebody else. And I just didn't know what that looked like at the time. And I remember being in a place where I was actually hungover yet another day. I think it was July of 2013. And of the, 200 days or whatever that equates to in the middle of July. I mean, I think I had really been drinking 199 of those days. So I just didn't feel good. And I just remember being in that state and I was like, I need help. And by the grace of the Facebook gods, I actually ended up, there was a life coach that I had been following for quite some time on Facebook, and he was giving away a couple of tickets to a weekend mastery workshop that was going on. And I'm like, that's exactly what I need. And that ended up changing the course of my life from that moment forward, because again, it was relinquishing control. It was understanding that I didn't have I looked good on paper, but I didn't have the emotional skill set to carry me through that situation in a way that was going to make me a success. I was either going to be dead or divorced by the time I was 35. And that neither one of those situations were a good thing to be. So, needless to say, that was probably my darkest moment. And fortunately, we've turned it around very quickly. I can't believe it was 3.5 years ago, but so that's a pretty deep story and tough moment. So you take it from there, my friend, and where you want to direct and move this interview forward. But that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you for sharing that. I know a lot of our listeners, and myself included, I've been there with the workaholic tendencies. I think as entrepreneurs and high achievers, you go through that obsessiveness with, your business or whatever you're into for the moment. And then definitely the alcoholic abuse. I can relate on so many levels, especially with my story. If you've read it and listened to it, I know some of the listeners as well. It's a coping mechanism that we go to. Sometimes we think of the doctor. Hey, if the doctor says that we can have one glass of wine a day, then this is my one glass of wine a day. Why not? And then it ends up becoming something we didn't expect, right? Looking at down the road. But we justify those things because we're trying to cope. And then when you said the personal development mastery seminar, I love that because that's exactly what happened to myself. But for me, it was more of the one-on-one coaching and getting that first taste of personal development. That changed everything, put me on a new trajectory, and it sounds like it did the same for you, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think so many people that are in some sort of crisis right now, where they're doing their darndest to figure things out, but they just can't crack the code. That's where I really feel like stepping outside of your own self and realizing that you need support it is super valuable. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was one of those things that it was just like, if I don't do this, something drastic is going to happen. It's probably not going to be a good thing. So I need to make this shift.
Yes. And isn't it funny how our intuition knows we're heading down a path that is probably going to lead to some disaster, but we don't know how to change things until we have those tools and resources in our tool belt, and then we can pull them out and start using some of those strategies, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Because then it empowers you to really take a different, take an outlook and really guide people in a way that's more compelling and it's more fulfilling for us individually, for sure.
Okay, that's a beautiful segue. So let's go back to that seminar or that moment where you had that bright light bulb aha moment that empowered you to get beyond that life storm. If you can kind of dial that in for us.
Yeah. So, I'm at this workshop, and I guess so this is how much of a, I was in such denial, right? I was like, okay, well, this life mastery workshop would be awesome because he's talking about conquering all sorts of things. And I think somewhere in the copy of this Facebook ad or whatever that was, compelling enough for me to take action on it. Somewhere in there, it said something about weight loss. And, at the time I was 35 pounds overweight, 40 pounds overweight. I didn't feel real good about myself. So, and I knew that had everything to do with my indulgent behaviors, right? And, of course, I wasn't taking care of my body. I was just doing all this crazy stuff. But I'm trying to build it okay, well, maybe if I go, maybe he'll have some sort of secret, bullet that's going to magically cure my weight loss. And I'm sitting in this workshop, and, everything that he was saying was just really hitting the head on the nail. That my lack of self-worth, my lack of self-esteem, even though on the exterior I look like this confident rock star, I just had all these little voices that were going off in my brain that were telling me otherwise. And no matter what I could do, I couldn't shut those voices up. So I knew that, through the written exercises and some of the group work that, we were doing in the exercises, this to me was starting to be that. It was that puzzle piece. It was okay, if I was just committing to narrowing down on paper, where the core issues are coming from, because everything I'm experiencing with the drinking, with working crazy, not feeling like I'm fitting in, that's all this superficial issue, but it didn't really attack the core. And that was my big aha. I needed to attack the core, because everything that we can do, and this, I think this ties into business beautifully. We can learn all the how. We can learn how to master the Facebook ads. We can learn how to go out there and talk to people. But if we don't have the thing that's rocking our core figured out, if we don't have that little piece of the puzzle, so rock solid and so in tune to what we need to do to rock our business or rock our life, all the how-to in the world isn't going to mean a darn thing if we can't attack, or at least address, I don't want to say attack, but at least address what's rocking our core. And that was my big aha in the whole weekend. I think it was a 20-hour workshop or something. So I had enough time to kind of process that in that time frame. And that was super huge.
And that is so true. Everybody's looking for that quick magic silver bullet, right? Let me just get that one thing out of the seminar that's going to change everything, right? But it takes consistent action every day. Mm-hmm. And the right emotion creates the right motion. Once you engage your physiology, and this is what I kept hearing throughout your story, is once you started exercising, once you started focusing on not just the physical you, but the internal you, and you started moving and taking action, things began to shift. So I love that about your story. And was there a mantra or prayer or maybe an affirmation, Erica, that you used to help motivate you through some of those challenges?
That's an excellent question. So I think that, especially anybody that has a self-worth or self-esteem issue that might be listening to this today, the one thing that really carried me throughout my journey, it still does today, I have it taped up here on a sticky note on my computer, but I am the light. And I think that each and every one of us, we can be the light, we can be the resource, we can be the ray of hope for somebody in our world. It doesn't mean that we have to be that ray of light for everybody, because that's draining on a whole nother level. But, I am valuable. I am the light. I do shed some hope for other people out there. But more importantly, I honor that about myself now. I don't necessarily seek that validation out for other people, or from other people, I should say. But more importantly, I have to realize that I've got special, unique gifts, and I am the light for myself, and I'm also the light for other people out there too.
See that, Thrivers out there listening? I am the light. I am so resonating with that. Once you ignite that light, it's like that metaphor that I used to hear all the time when I used to go to different church events and so on and so forth back when I was on my big Christian walk. And it was just about the overflowing cup. You don't want to be that cup that has to just wait for everybody else to fill your cup. Once you keep filling your own cup from the inside out, it's an overflowing cup, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. So what's the best advice that you've received, Erica, from a coach or mentor that also maybe helped benefit any shift in your life?
Well, I think we alluded to this, whether it was early on or in the pre-chat, but it's worth bringing up again even if we mentioned it on the interview now. But the best advice that I've received is from the founder of UGG Boots. If anybody hasn't heard Brian Smith's story, it's absolutely incredible. That guy, he sold the company 15 years ago, but now he's going out there speaking, training. I actually met him, and he was on my podcast not too long ago, but I met him at a conference in Philadelphia back in April. And the thing that he said from stage was simply this: you cannot give birth to an adult. So I think for anybody that's out there listening to, our little chat today, we have to enjoy the process. We have to understand that any idea that we have, it's born, and then it has to go through an infancy stage, it has to go through a toddler stage, it has to go through, childhood stage, and go all the way through, to where it becomes an adult. And this is going to be earth-shattering to some of you out there, but it also will probably end up dying. Entropy sets in. And so, we've got to be okay with the journey that those ideas and those concepts go on, but we have to, we can't jump the ship. We can't jump the process through all that, because as much as, I haven't given birth to anybody, but the last time I checked, it's impossible to give birth to somebody that's not a baby. I mean, you can't give birth to an adult. And so for me, it resonated with me so much because, again, I think, and you and I were talking off air about this, it's like our business shifts and flows. I mean, anybody that could be listening to this right now, if you're in a crazy spot with your business right now, it's going to ebb and flow. But don't think because you're looking at somebody out there that's doing X, Y, Z and they're awesome and they're rocking it and whatever, that you can't get to that level of success. It's just not your time right now. So enjoy the ride, enjoy the process. You can't give birth to an adult, so enjoy where you're at today.
There you have it. I think those were some aha moments maybe for some of the listeners out there. I'm hoping if they were, leave us a rating and review or connect with Erica as well over at, where can they connect with you, Erica?
Over at thequeenofresults.com.
There you go. So, Erica, I love everything you said. The life cycle, right? The law of gestation, knowing what season you're in. And as morbid or fatalistic as those thoughts might be, you have to own and honor where you are in the world and where you are in life. And once you honor and you're accountable and you're you're honest with yourself. That's really when things started to shift for myself when I was going through that first initial personal development program. The first part for me was being honest with myself. Like, if I'm sucking right now, let me just own that. Right? If I'm in transition, let me just own the transition. I'm all right. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm heading. But guess what? I'm willing to go through the process to get there. And that's stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and it just puts it into a totally different perspective, and people can feel the energy too. If you're joking around about that or kind of sugarcoating it, people get it and people read into it. So just be okay with it and own it.
Right on. So if there's a 2 or 3 step formula that you could give our listeners to get beyond some of the adversity that they're facing, maybe whether it's business, personal, or anything that you feel would benefit them, what would that 2 to 3 step formula be?
Well, I think first and foremost, and you alluded to it just earlier, just being okay with where you're at, just being grateful for where you're at in your process. So just owning where you're at, being yourself, that's step number 1, being just totally okay with where you're at and not sugarcoating or not hyping any aspect of your life or business. If your relationships are in a sour spot, you know what? Acknowledge that it is what it is, but then take responsibility for that. The other thing, this might kind of throw some people off. I don't know, maybe it'll resonate with some other people too, but I think that when we're put in a situation where we feel like we're not thriving and we're not, we're staying stuck, one of the things that I suggest to a lot of my clients, and I've talked about this in other interviews I've done and other blogs I've written, but being of service can so take you out of that element of woe is me to, oh my goodness, look how I'm providing value and showing up for other people. And it's not just in a business context. I mean, it can be in, hey, I want to actually give back to my favorite charity organization. I want to go volunteer at my hospital and be a, companion for some of the people that are, maybe not super sick on the, in a typical wing, but, I might be able to show up and be of service in those areas. So I think, being yourself and being okay with where you're at in the process, owning that, number 1. And number 2, if you feel like that you're in that situation where you're not thriving, go out there and be of service. It's amazing what's out there if you can put yourself in the energy of being of service first and helping others who are probably in a tougher spot than you are.
Amen to that, Erica. Yes, indeed. And I know that's been something that we've said on many episodes. Be of service, go out and feed some homeless people, go and volunteer for some groups, because then you're not worried about your hot mess and your hot situation.
Yeah, exactly. One of the tips, it's funny that you bring up homeless people because, some people are it's outside of their comfort zone to go work in a soup kitchen or what we like to call in our neck of the woods, we have an actual cafe. But we have a community cooperative in my backyard here in Fort Myers. We actually have something that's called Cafe Ed. And so literally there's experts that come in and teach for free. Anybody that wants to show up, I mean, they don't have to be homeless, but they can be in any situation and they can actually get education on what to do for finances and balance their books. And I do a life coaching class once a month in that Cafe Ed, and it's so powerful. You never know who you're going to run into and how that's going to affect people on a deeper level. So even those opportunities are out there. You just have to ask people if they're available.
I love that. So that's a great way to kickstart your coaching, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So now here's the deep dive question. So take your time answering. If 100 years from today, you were to be remembered for one legendary thing, so there's this statue erected in Erica Castner's name, and there's a little plaque there with the little snippet of what Erica is known for, that one legendary thing, what would that be?
That's a really great question. I think for me personally, I would want to be known as a connector, because I'm not the person that necessarily has all the answers, but I've always prided myself on being resourceful, helping other people in a way that that doesn't mean that I need to quote unquote coach them or they have to do business with me, but what can I do to help somebody else connect the dots, strengthen their resources, be put in front of a relationship or an opportunity that's going to help them in some way, shape, or form. So I think if we were going to put something on that plaque, that person that's just genuinely out there to connect the dots and be of service.
I so love that. So now, where can our listeners best connect with you? I know we've said it before. Maybe if you'd like to share something that you've got coming in the next couple months or the next year. Is there any projects you'd like to highlight and share with our audience?
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, so we actually have on the queenofresults.com, if they go there, so if they go to queenofresults.com/thriving beyond, that's just what you're listening to today, folks. if you forgot, there's actually all sorts of great nuggets that I'm going to be hooking the listeners up with. One of them is just my top 10 best ways to connect. I think a lot of business owners right now, especially ones that might be listening to this podcast, or anybody that's thinking about maybe expanding their network or their connection or their reach, and they're not really for sure how to do that on a real confident scale. There's real powerful nuggets in that list. So they can just go nab that. They don't even have to put their email in. Just go nab it on the website. And then, of course, if they want to stay connected with me and listen to the podcast, there's going to be a place where they can connect with that information as well.
Right on. So all of that's going to be in the episode description section. So just to recap, that was queenofresults.com/thriving beyond, correct?
You got it.
There you go. So thank you so much for sharing all of the moments, the aha moments that you had in your empowering story. And as always, keep going, keep growing, and keep thriving, because it's way better than just surviving. Until next time.
Thanks for listening. For recaps and to claim bonus gifts, head over to thriving.beyondpodcast.com. Keep thriving.
We're always honored to have every single guest share their story and how they got through their life storm. If you know somebody that needs to hear this episode, we'd be super grateful if you could send this to somebody that needs to hear this message today. Gratitude.